like I'm up here, I'm in control of this aircraft, to my business, it became very much, it's me, I'm in control, I'm the one that has to make things happen. And the reality is so many other people need to be involved for success to be in a painting company, also on the battlefield.
Welcome to the Base Coat Brainiac podcast. My name is Austin Hauser. I am Chief Brainiac over here at Base Coat Marketing. If you own a painting business and you're listening in, you are in the right place. So today I am joined by Matt Mason with A&A Painting out of St. Charles, Illinois. Matt and Eric partnered up with Base Coat Marketing just over a year ago, and it sounds like they're on track to smash $2.5 million this year. It's been an absolute pleasure seeing them grow and thrive along the way here. So first of all, Matt, I want to first appreciate you being here and thank you for taking the time out of your day to provide our audience with your story and any expertise you have to impart on them.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. It's been a great, I think it's been almost 18 months since we kind of first came on board with you guys, starting right after January of 2023, I believe. And it's been a great ride, man. I'm excited to be here. So thanks for having me.
Let's do it. So Matt, we're obviously here to talk about your business, where you got started, who you serve, what your makeup looks like, where you want to be in the future. But I want to start with you. So let's go back in time. Take us back to a point, preferably after birth, but before you started the painting company. Sure. What's your story? How'd you get here?
Yeah. So I went to college at Indiana University in Bloomington, and I had gone there to play football. And there was a point in time in my career where I basically had to call it quits. Too many injuries to the shoulder. And so I kept coming home for the summer from college. And I started working for a company called College Craft Painting Company, like where they would hire college kids and they go paint exterior houses all summer. And shortly after I got done, I think I spent 2 summers painting for them. I ended up joining the Marine Corps for 10 years. So I really, my profession wasn't anything to do with my college degree. I wasn't in the painting industry, but I was a Marine, and actually I lived in Wilmington, North Carolina for a lot of my time.
That's right.
Because I was based right there out of Jacksonville. And and so when I got out of the service, I thought, man, what am I going to do? I didn't have a good transition plan. So I thought, okay, well, I painted in college. It doesn't take a lot of skill to paint, right? It doesn't take a lot of skill to paint. At least that's what I thought. And so I just started painting for people. I went around to property management companies. I was doing odd and end jobs. I was mowing yards, pulling weeds, anything I could do right there in Wilmington, North Carolina to just make ends meet. And make a long story short, my wife had a little bit of a medical issue. We got pregnant with our second child, and we moved back to the Chicagoland area. I took a job with inside sales for insurance. I don't know why I did that, but I did because I needed work. I lasted about 8 weeks. I knew that's not what I wanted to do. And so shortly after the first of the year, this would have been like January of 2014, I started my own little company, and I would do any handyman, any painting work, any deck staining I could do. And that's where I really got started. And so my first year in business, just to let you know, 2014, I grossed $14,000. So
what a change, right?
Yeah. And it just grew and grew. And eventually through some very strategic relationships and talking to people, I'm here today as a co-owner of A&A Painting, and we're going to do close to $2.5 million this year.
Congrats, man. That's a great story.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the early days, because as I understand it, you acquired this business about 5 years ago. It was an established business that it sounds like you guys have since significantly scaled.
Yeah.
So let's take us back to the early days. What were some of your struggles? What did that look like? We all go through struggles as an entrepreneur, and they all look different for everybody in business.
Yeah. So early on, when I was the lone painter, it was me. And so I would show up to someone's house and they would, I'd be painting a small powder room bathroom. And then that person would say, well, can you change out this light fixture for me? So I would change out that light fixture. And what I found myself is, I don't know, have you ever read the book Profit First?
Yes.
Okay. So I can relate a lot to that. I hadn't read it at the time, but I found myself kind of like trying to be a jack of all trades. And it just, nothing ever got traction. I'd find myself at Home Depot 14 times during the day trying to figure out what part I needed to fix this issue at someone's house that they asked me to do after I was done painting the bathroom. And so the biggest challenge early on was focusing on one thing that I was good at, or that I thought I could be good at. And then two, how do people find me? How do I get customers? Because there'd be a lot of days I would send out an estimate and I would sit there and wait on the response. So I had one estimate pending. And so really the biggest challenge was how could I get the ball rolling faster? And the reality was it didn't happen fast. It took me probably 2 or 3 years to get this up and going. Even though I look back on it now and knowing what I know now, I could have got it started in 2 months, but I just didn't know. So
yeah. Hindsight is 2020. What were some of the skills you felt like you had to learn along the way that you have now that you wish you had then?
Delegation. I was petrified of hiring somebody to be in someone else's home that was my friend, part of my warm network, someone I had met. My reputation was everything, and it still is, but I was so afraid to delegate any responsibility that I basically just said I wasn't going to do it. And I had a couple epiphanies along the way. I can share those with you if you want.
Let's do it.
So I started off where majority of my business was relatively seasonal. I was doing in the Chicagoland area. This is like the worst area of the country to maintain a deck, right? So nobody wants to touch them. Every customer wants a 10-year warranty. And so what I found was if I just was honest with people and I didn't promise them anything and I charged them a good price, they would hire me every couple of years to come back and just restain their deck because it's just what happens. And I was sitting, my wife and I had talked about our oldest child going to college, and she was maybe 4 or 5 at the time. And I realized how many decks I was going to have to stain in order for her to go to college. And the number scared the heck out of me.
Yeah.
And so when I thought about having to stain 25,000 decks, it kept me up at night. And this was probably 2015, 2016. So that was epiphany number 1. And epiphany number 2 happened in the summer of 2017. I had a couple of college kids helping me in the summer. And so we went and we traveled about 45 minutes and we were going to stain 3 decks all in one day. We were going to do about a 12-hour day. We're going to bang them all out. And I made $1,000 in one day. And I had this epiphany. I go, wow, if I just had people to help me, look at how much money I could make in a day rather than trying to do it all by myself. So those 2 things led me to start thinking in a way more like a business owner than an employee of my own business, if that makes sense.
Would you consider that a perfectionist mentality that you had to beat out of your mindset?
I think so, yes. And it was a trust mentality.
Yeah.
Not trusting other people. And maybe some of that stemmed from the fact, a little bit of background on my personality side. In the Marine Corps, I was a helicopter pilot. So in the helicopter, it's you and one other person. So really, you're kind of responsible for yourself up there when you're flying, when you're talking on the radio, when you're engaging with the enemy on the ground. And so when I transitioned my mindset of like, I'm up here, I'm in control of this aircraft to my business, it became very much, it's me, I'm in control, I'm the one that has to make things happen. And the reality is so many other people need to be involved for success to be in a painting company, also on the battlefield. And so it was just kind of a personal growth process I had to go through. But yeah, perfectionism was part of the problem.
Yeah. And the other part of that is exactly what you mentioned. That's control. We all like a little bit of certainty in our life, knowing that like what's in our world we control. And
Sure.
That's just an illusion, right? Like as business owners, we need to give that up, knowing that even if we deliver exactly what we say we're going to deliver, the client or the customer still may be unhappy.
Yeah.
And, going through that personal growth journey, I think is what every business owner needs to do.
And some of it was just me doing the math. I used to say, okay, well, if I hire this person, I'm only going to make $200 a day. Because if it's $400 that you charge the customer, it takes you a whole day and you got to pay someone $150 to help you. Well, that just took $150 out of my pocket because I wasn't thinking with a scaled mindset. I was seeing the tree right in front of me and not the forest around of what a business could be when you hire people to do it. So once I started to figure out the math of scaling in my head, that's when I really started looking to other people to help me and figure out how can I get this thing bigger than what I had it.
I think a good way to phrase that is like the difference between something costing you money and an investment, right? Like I look at people as an investment. It's, you're going to take a smaller piece of the pie, but it's a smaller piece of a larger pie, right? And I think that's where having that mindset shift, I think, again, every business owner has to do that. And if you're still on the brush and you're listening in, this is that hard, painful journey that you have to go through. And good things don't happen overnight. It took you a couple of years. Other guys, it might take a couple of months. Other guys, it may take a couple of decades. But if you want to get off the brush and you want to start focusing on growing your business, that's the journey you have to go through, right?
Yeah. And to the idea of investing is even the marketing budget. Like we are at the stage in our business where we're starting to put together a marketing budget. And the number that we're coming up with for marketing budget is more than I made in the first year that I was in business on my own. So but I don't look at it really as an expense. I look at it as saying, hey, this is what we have to spend to not only build our brand, but so people can start seeing us and finding us without us having to do any canvassing on our own.
Yes.
It's, very limited physical labor has to go into it so that you can focus on other aspects of your business that need work.
Yeah. Your ability to free up your time and your mental bandwidth to focus on growing the business is so damn important.
Big time.
So, all right. So you got off the brush, you started hiring people. At what point did you decide to acquire A&A Painting? Like, take me through that whole journey there.
So in the summer of 2018, 2017 was the first full year that I actually met all my personal expenses. So I made enough money on my own, a little bit of seasonal help that my wife and I could pay our rent, pay all the bills. We had 4 kids at the time. I think they were 7 years of age and under. And so a lot going on there.
Yeah.
And summer of 2018 comes around and I'm starting to think, okay, I need to start hiring people. So I had a guy that I knew through the industry. And then our kids also went to preschool together who had a business. He had A&A Painting. And so I reached out to him and through a couple of conversations, I finally just asked him, would you want to sell your company to me? And the thing that I really liked about Eric at the time was he thought about it and he told me, I don't know that that's going to be a great deal for you, for him just to sell it to me. Cause he's like, I don't really have like an established system. I've got some employees, I've got some equipment. And so he said, well, why don't we consider having you buy into the company, basically merge our companies together and we'll just run this thing together. And so that happened over the course of 2018 into 2019. And honestly, my biggest fear was I'd been working on my own for about 5 years. And my fear was I was going to start to be micromanaged. I was really fearful about taking on a partner. And I expressed those concerns to him. And so I just kind of rolled the dice and I said, I'm going to, I know this guy. I don't know him super well. We merged together on June 1st of 2019 and it has just been phenomenal. And so Eric has actually largely taken a backseat role in the painting company. And so I pretty much run it all by myself now. We've got some other things going on the contracting side that he heads up and he leads. But it's really been a great 5 years. But that strategic relationship of knowing him in the industry and then sitting down with him over several lunches, talking through what we were both looking for, it just really made sense. And so it's been a great partnership ever since.
Love it. And, when we look at business partnerships, I forget the exact statistic, but it has about the same success rate or less as a marriage in our day and age. The odds are not in your favor, generally speaking, right? In terms of how long did you know Eric before jumping into that partnership? Were there any like red flags or caveats that you were considering when jumping on board?
So, my younger brother had actually worked for Eric as a laborer, as a painter and a carpenter for a couple years. That must have been 2004 through 2007, something in that time frame. So I knew of him, and I my family had kind of knew him because my younger brother worked for him, but I really didn't know him on a personal level other than passing him in the hallway at the preschool, dropping our kids off. he shared a little bit of initial jobs with me. So if he had some smaller jobs he couldn't get to, he would pass those along to me, and I'd give him a little finder's fee for him. And so that was kind of a little bit of early on. My biggest concern really was, is Eric really telling me the truth? Is what he telling me about his business, about what he owns, and what role I would play as I came on board as a partner? Was it really true? And it really was. It ended up being that way. So it was risky. We were risking. And I think on Eric's end, if he was here with us, he would say I was risking giving up half my company to a guy that I'm trusting is going to be a hard worker, is going to do what he says, is going to take an ownership mentality. And the one thing too, I'll say is Eric and I we probably talk more than we talk to our wives. But I wouldn't consider us best friends, right? So it is very much a business relationship. Eric can be very honest with me, and I can be very honest with him. I can vent to him, and he can vent to me. So having that marriage, if you will, in business, for me has been super helpful.
Yeah. And I think having that military background and the mentality of extreme ownership, you own everything in your entire world, goes a long way. That's one of our core values, and I live and die by that. Yeah. Were there any other aspects of Eric in this business partnership that you feel like has made this a successful venture?
Eric takes a ton of pride in the fact that he is a local economy-based business. So Eric has lived in St. Charles for, it's got to be 40 some years. He grew up here. He went to high school here. He really hasn't ever moved away. I think he went to college down in Central Illinois. And he has just invested in this community. So Eric has a ton of great relationships. And so his relationships with other trades, his relationships with builders, his relationships with his customers, is so ingrained in the community that he just has a burning desire to be a great company in this community. And so that's really the mentality that I saw in him, and that I knew I was going to be here for the long term. And so when I came on board as a partner, that relationship that I saw between him and his customers, him and his family, he's a family man. Those things were values that I share. And so that's what's really worked out well.
Love it. Well, congrats again on the successful partnership. And I'm really looking to see what you guys do here in the near future. Now, I know you guys are on target to hit about 2.5 this year.
Yep.
Where did you start at when you joined?
So looking back at some of the books, probably 2014, 2015, 2016, before I came on board, Eric was in the 400s-ish range, 400 to 500. And then the first year I was on board in 2019, I think we did about 700. And then we were in that same general vicinity until we kind of had a business epiphany together about scaling and growth. And then in 2022, we did just over $1 million. And then last year, a little bit skewed because we took on a really big commercial remodel project. But our top line revenue was about $2.058 million for 2023. And a lot of it changed when we went to a 1099 model. That's how we operate our business.
Yep.
We had a little bit of an issue with some W-2 guys just not taking ownership of the job sites. And so we made, in a 30-day period, we made a complete change in our business. Wow. Went to a CRM system, went to 1099 model, and brought you guys on board. And over the last 18 months, things have just skyrocketed. So
great segue into the team. Let's talk about the makeup of your team, because this is where I see all aspects of W-2s, 1099, submodel throughout the industry, right?
Yep.
What does that look like for you guys today?
Yeah, so we have currently on our team, it's Eric and I. I'm largely running the painting business. My team is built up of, we have Cindy as our office manager. We have Rick is our lead sales guy. And I've got a lead production manager. He's also my lead cabinet refinisher. His name's Mike. And so the four of us are kind of what I would consider the leadership of the painting company. And then we have 7 teams in the field, 8 if you include, we have a couple college kids that do some deck staining and some stuff like that for us. That's seasonal. We only have one in-house, quote, employee painter. All right. The rest of them are teams, and they're all 1099 subcontractors. The biggest caveat is 6 of the 7 team leaders, we call our 1099 the lead guys team leaders. They all used to be employees of ours in the past. And so they kind of went off to try and do their own thing. It didn't really work out with another company. So about a year and a half ago, we approached them about being a dedicated subcontractor for us. And they were on board. So over the course of the last about 12 months, we brought on all 6 of those teams. The 7th one I met last year, just through some marketing and some Sherwin-Williams posters. And he's worked out really well for us as well. So
awesome. So let's talk through how, like, obviously you mentioned already how you went acquiring some of those subcontractors.
Yep.
The other W-2s and in general, what's your strategy for finding team members?
Just meeting people. I use Sherwin-Williams and JC Licht as the water cooler. So I typically, if I'm in there buying paint, which is relatively rare these days, since bringing on my sales manager or my lead sales guy and my project manager, they've kind of largely worked me out of a job. So I'm kind of sitting back, making strategic decisions. I'll go hang out at Sherwin-Williams. I'll sit in there and I'll drink the free coffee and I'll talk to Brett. He's our main manager at the store here in St. Charles. I'll talk to the assistant manager, Deanna. I know their names. I know the employees that work in there. And I talk to them. I say, hey, if you guys ever get someone in here that may be unhappy or maybe someone you think I want to talk to, give them my name and number, or I want their name and number. And so I use that as an asset. So our sales rep, Keith, with Sherwin-Williams, he's a huge asset for us. Sometimes he'll send us guys. Hey, one of my old, he used to be in the commercial side. He'll say, hey, one of my old commercial guys is trying to get into residential. Would you be interested in meeting with him? Absolutely. I actually have an interview tomorrow with a former Sherwin-Williams intern. Well, not intern, but one of their seasonal guys who is about to get his college degree. And I'm going to interview him as our second sales guy. So I use those paint stores as ways to meet people. So that's where I would start.
Yeah. Relationships in the world of business are your leverage, right?
Sure.
Those connections you form. So what are some of the interview questions that you typically like to ask? So everybody has different interview styles, interview approaches. Some are very rigid, some are more soft KPIs and evaluating those.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you for the various positions that you guys like to hire for?
So basically I go into every interview with 0 notes. I don't go in with a questionnaire. I just go in and I make it very conversational. I am a huge proponent of people like bringing the tone down to where you can really get to the bottom of what people are looking for, who they are as a person, and what asset they could bring to the company. And so, like for instance, my sales guy and his Rick is my sales guy. Mike is my project manager. They're brothers. They had their own company. I met him at Sherwin-Williams at the counter, struck up a conversation. Over the course of 6 months, we met for coffee, just talking about the industry, talking about life. And finally and this was all strategic. Don't tell him I said that, but finally on coffee number 4 or 5, I said, what would it take to bring you on board with A&A Painting? And he initially said, I don't really think I want to do that. I said, well, give me a number. And when he gave me the number, I thought it was a little higher than what I thought, but it was reasonable. And I said, this is a guy I want on my team. And another quick note, you got to pay for good people.
Yes.
You're not going to get good people cheap. And so when he gave me his number, I thought this guy knows what he's worth. And I'm more than willing to come really close to that number that he's worth because he's the right guy. So over the course of these conversations, I realized with Eric's input as well, he's going to be a better sales guy than he is a project manager because I originally wanted to hire him as a project manager. And through the course of just general conversation, he's very easy to talk to. People like him because he's honest. He comes across as very genuine because he is. He's a family man, and he's perfect for a sales role. So that's kind of the way I take interviews.
Love it. All right, let's jump into the business itself, the services you guys offer.
Yep.
What are your money makers? What do you guys like to focus on? What resonates well within your market up there?
So we do, don't hold me to this number, but of our painting business, If we're going to do $2 million this year, which we're going to come really close, the other $500,000 is probably going to be in some general contracting stuff. Of the $2 million, about 75% of that will be residential repaint, interior, exterior paints for houses that are going to be between $400,000 and $700,000. That's the western suburbs. Is a very most parents or most couples are dual income. It's a higher income area. That's our bread and butter. I would say exteriors, 3 sides are cedar, front is brick. Painting those things, we'll knock those things out all day long. The other 25% is a mix of some corporate offices. We have some strategic relationships with some retirement homes around here. That's a huge growth opportunity, by the way. We have some strategic relationships with some property managers. And then occasionally we'll get like an industrial type job where we're spraying warehouse ceilings, or we'll paint the exterior of a warehouse, something along those lines. But that's kind of the breakdown of our revenue.
All right. On the commercial side, let's talk about that for a moment. How did you build those relationships? Was that just organic, or did you have a strategy behind that?
Yeah, so some of it was organic. The organic relationships were largely built. I've got several friends from high school that own some of these companies. Eric, talking about investing in the community, Eric has some awesome relationships with some of the business owners, some of the property managers, some of the developers that have really developed our downtown over the last 10 years. But some of it has been strategic as well. We've cold called retirement homes, senior living facilities, both the ones that are assisted living and the ones that have unassisted. Those are huge growth opportunities. Actually, there's one here in St. Charles. We've already done about $225,000 with them since January, nice. Just because we threw some Facebook ads out. They were a new ownership group that happened to be looking for painting companies, and a couple of our Facebook ads popped up. And so the director called our office and set up a meeting, and we were able to get in there. And we don't have an official contract, but we're their go-to painting company.
So good.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's jump around a little bit here. Tech stack. One of the most common questions that we hear come up in this industry is, what technology do you use to run your company?
Sure.
And everybody has a different answer. Where are you guys at today? What's working well for you? What's not?
Yeah, so I would tell anybody that's getting ready to start a painting company or getting ready to scale, you got to use technology. You have to. So for us, really, we went from largely QuickBooks to a CRM system. We started out with Drip Jobs. We still use Drip Jobs, and I would speak very highly of Drip Jobs. It was a great avenue for us to dip our toe into a CRM. But we're in the process of transitioning everything over to a different CRM system. We use Paint Scout. Are you familiar with Paint Scout?
Oh, yeah.
So phenomenal tool. We actually got introduced to it back in February at a Sherwin-Williams main event. We ended up talking to the Paint Scout rep. We signed on immediately, and it's been a game changer for us. So we use Paint Scout estimating tool. We're actually in the process of hiring a consulting company to build a whole IT infrastructure for us. We are using Monday.com. I'll keep my opinion to myself. It has not been super user-friendly for us. Maybe it's just because I'm not totally understanding the system. But Monday.com is our CRM. And then I love Company Cam. Company Cam is our project management software. They all three integrate. So whether you go with Monday.com or HubSpot or Drip Jobs, a lot of them do integrate together. And so those are our three main systems that we're using.
Love it. Are you guys using Boolean automation for the integration? Yeah, those guys are great.
We have our, about 1 month from today, we have our onboarding call, and then we start just after like the second week of September. So it's a year-long program.
Love those guys. And for anybody listening in who's interested in learning more about how to connect technology together, but you don't have the skill set to do it yourself, go reach out to the guys over at Boolean Automation. They can help you guys integrate all of that together. It's a hands-off service, and it works very well.
Yeah, and can I make one more plug for technology?
Go for it.
When it comes to marketing, my recommendation, unless you have a background in digital marketing, subcontract it all out. There's too many nuances to try and figure out Facebook's algorithms and Google algorithms to try and do things on your own. Whether you work with your company, Base Coat Austin, or another company, I just highly recommend find someone that knows what they're doing, because it is a game changer for lead generation. And it's a game changer for freeing yourself up to be able to focus on what content do you want? How do you want to connect better with customers? I'm getting such great feedback from my little 30-second video clips that it's almost embarrassing the amount of people that it's touching. Because I'll be out in town here and someone will say, "Oh, I saw your video clip the other day," and I'm like, "What? I didn't even know there was one running today." So it's super helpful to scale your business. So that's the other part of technology I recommend.
I appreciate that mention. And, it's one of these things that when we look at marketing and what works and the clients that succeed and the clients that don't, it's clients like you, Matt, that are engaged in your actual program. We always say we don't work for our clients, we work with them. And it's the clients that actually, provide the media that we need to drive those results, that get the best results. So absolutely, guys. And look, I'll also mention in terms of algorithms, I mean, the rug's pulled out from under us all the time. The only difference between our ability to maneuver in that environment and somebody trying to do it on their own is we pay a lot of very smart people to figure all this stuff out and have a contingency plan already in place. So if you're looking for stability and consistency in your marketing plan, just go find somebody to do it for you for sure.
Yeah. And just to give kind of an example of that, I mean, I get emails all the time where Facebook says they're pulling our ads down. And with Base Coat, we don't have to worry about any of that. You guys, and then within like probably less than 24 hours, I get an ad saying your ads have been approved. And so whatever Facebook finds, whatever Google finds, it's not because it's untrue, but it could just be some sort of glitch in the system. And Base Coat, you guys have done a great job of getting our ads back up and running. But Google really and Facebook, they really want to be authentic. They want the local community to know that the A&A Painting or whatever your name of your painting company is a legit business that's doing good work, that is providing a top quality service for the community. And so I really commend them for working through that. And you've got to have a professional on your side to help you with it, because I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah. Always lead with authenticity. If you're out there putting before and after images up and expecting that to sell, people see right through that these days. It's the same reason why people DVR their show they want to watch just to fast forward through the commercials. If you're not leading with something authentic and trustworthy, people are only going to buy if they know, like, and trust you.
So that's an interesting point. I don't know if you want to segue into this or not, but I'm a big believer that about 70% of the sales process is done before I even show up at the doorstep. And a lot of it is just the way that the consumer shops nowadays. So one of my ads pops up on Facebook, and then they'll check my Google page, or they'll Google me, and then they'll check my Facebook page, and then they'll call a friend, and then they'll look at my Google reviews, and then they may get a mailer from me. So a lot of these customers, they have 5, 6, 7 touch points with A&A Painting before we even show up. I've got a truck that's wrapped now. We've got yard signs. Our guys are in A&A Painting shirts. These are all little touch points to make you look authentic, because you are authentic. And so the more touch points that you can give to people before you show up on the door, the less that project is actually about price.
Yeah. It's so important for people to understand that marketing, I like to treat marketing like a retirement account or like the stock market. It's not going to scale fast, but when it does get traction, it's something that expands exponentially. But more so, it does take touch points. It does take time. And the more time you give it, the better results you can expect. At the end of the day, man, it is all about just having not all your eggs in one basket, right? So again, like the stock market, you don't want to put all of your money in one stock. You want to distribute it across the board.
Right.
That's why we always recommend, like, don't put all your eggs on Facebook. Don't put all your eggs on Google. Don't put all your eggs on digital. Like, do postcard mailers, door hangers, yard signs. You need to be omnipresent is really the strategy that we like to leverage. And yes, it can cost money, which is why we really recommend, if you're doing like under $500K a year, you can kind of bootstrap your way through that and grind your way through that marketing strategy until you get to the point where your time becomes more valuable.
Exactly. And I used to think, kind of a business owner mindset. I used to think that scaling a business was going to, like, quality was going to suffer. Right. And I just don't think that's true, because the teams that we're looking to hire, we have a certain standard, and what we try to, and don't get me wrong, a 1099 model doesn't have to be, oh, I've got this job, let me just throw it to whatever contractor is available. We have very strategic relationships with our subcontractors. In fact, like, I love these guys. You know, a lot of us, I host a lunch at our office about once a month, just to bring them in to reiterate some key points about communication, about quality, about cleanup. I don't run their job sites, but there is a standard that A&A Painting has. And the point that I try to get across to them is, the better that you do, the better that we do, the better that the whole company does. And so these guys have a vested interest to do top quality work, so that they're not just busy April through October. In Chicagoland area, there's obviously no painting going on from Thanksgiving through, you know, the end of March outside. So we lose a lot of opportunity in the wintertime. But if you stay consistent with your marketing, you stay consistent with your quality, you can keep your teams working through the, quote, slow season. And so that's really what we try to build, even though we're a 1099 model, is to get everyone to buy in to the culture of A&A Painting is the go-to painting company in the we call it the Tri-Cities. There's three towns kind of right here in the Tri-City area. That's what our goal is. And we can do that by just doing a top quality job, being honest, and doing what we're say we're going to do. So.
Yeah. So let's actually talk about your team again, because this is, I think, where a lot of guys fail, especially on the sub side. Like, we have a client, Brad Ellison, he's aiming to do about $5 million this year in res, and he's all subs, and he does the exact same thing that you guys do. He treats his subcontractors like family, or like somebody that's, already on their team, not just a workhorse. Right. When you look at the accountability and, making sure that your team's resourceful, not coming to you for every single problem, but still following through to what your expectations that you set are during the sales process. How do you go about delegating that accountability to the subcontractor?
Well, it can be a little painful at first. I mean, none of this is easy. I don't know if you happen to listen to Tom Brady's speech the other day, where he talked about, like, getting up at 6 a.m. is hard. Being an NFL player is, like, all these things. Training is hard. It's simple, but it's not easy. So we had to go through some pain to get this rolling. But the way that you do, number one, you have to build trust. These subcontractors know that they're going to be treated honestly. They're going to get paid at the end of the job. That you're not going to tell them it's a one coat job, and then all of a sudden they get on there and they got to do 2 coats, but you're only going to pay the 1 coat price. So it's building that trust up. And so a couple things that we do. Number one, we get to know them really well, right? Like, we know them by first name. We know the guys on their teams. We host lunch. We build trust in the initial phases in that way. The other thing we do is, I tell my subcontractors, no matter what, you're getting paid for the job. So it can be a little bit tricky, because you want to hold them accountable. If there's callbacks, they need to go back and fix it. But things like, I'm not going to fret over $150 on a job site, because I want to keep the relationship great with the sub. I want to keep a relationship great with the homeowner. And here's an example. You're painting a kitchen ceiling, and it looked like it was flat white when you did the quote. You roll out CHB on it, and it needs another coat. Well, you only bid it for 1 coat. Do you go back and charge the customer an extra $150? Are you going to pay your subcontractor to do a second coat? Well, the answer is both. So we're always going to do a second coat, because we always want it to look great. Subcontractor is going to get paid for the extra work. And then we, as a leadership team, will determine, do we need to charge the customer, or do we want to just eat that cost, because really we should have caught it on the estimate?
Right.
So we build a lot of trust with our subs, because they know they're going to get paid for any extra work that the homeowner asks them to do, or that needs to be done to make sure it's a top quality. We're back to dark colors on everything now. So sometimes these walls that we think are going to cover in 2 coats, they need a 3rd coat. Customer picked out a dark color. We weren't expecting it. It took our sub 2 hours to do it. Cost me, $75 to pay them. A lot of times I'll just eat that cost. I'll note it to the customer. Customer's super happy. We made it look great. The sub's super happy because we paid him for the extra work. And at the end of the day, we got a great customer, and sub, we just built trust with them because we paid him for the stuff. So those are the kind of things. I don't try to see the $200 tree right in front of me. I try to see the 10-year relationship I'm trying to build.
Yeah. Yeah. And having that long-term mindset is really where I think a lot of business owners need to be. It's super easy to get that quick cash and that quick grab, but at the end of the day, man, you're building relationships for the future.
Yeah.
Those are the people that are going to refer their neighbors and call you back and talk to you about, or talk to their family about you guys over Thanksgiving dinner when they're sitting in a beautiful home, right?
And it's hard to think about what the business is going to look like 10 years from now if you're, cutting in ceilings because you're still on the job. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't have any issue with, the one-man painting team or the two-man painting team. I just think that eventually your body gets tired. Your mind gets tired. And there's only so many paint jobs to go around for the one and two-man teams that if we're not, as an industry, thinking about scaling, thinking about building the business, I think it holds the whole industry back. Totally. And so it's really hard to think 10 years in the future when you're worried about the bedroom right in front of you. So,
yeah, I always say, I think this industry as a whole is about a decade behind some of these other professionalized 100%. Industries, like HVAC, plumbing companies that require, a little more barrier to entry, but it doesn't take much for us to get there. And I think we'll get there pretty quick.
Yeah. And I think you're starting to see that trend. I mean, for the last 2 years, whether I'm listening to Painter Marketing Mastermind or Price Sell Paint, a couple of the podcasts I listen to, there's more and more people starting to recognize that. And for a company like me, in a way that scares me because it means there's more people coming into the professionalism of the painting industry. But I also know it's really good for the industry. So it scares me in a good way to always stay on top of my toes, or always to stay on my toes. Don't get complacent. Don't get comfortable, because eventually someone's going to pass you by, and it's going to happen. So
competition, I think a lot of people have a scarcity mindset around it. I love competition because it keeps us, to your point, it keeps you on your toes, and it always keeps you looking at what is the next thing we can do.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I would say the only guarantee in life is change, and if you're content with where you're at today, enjoy it, but understand that content feeling is going to change soon.
Yeah, I don't remember if this was Brad Ellison or there's a couple other guys that are pretty big in the industry that used to talk about this. If you want to know how much painting business there is in your area, go ask the manager of your local Sherwin-Williams, how much paint do they sell? And when they tell you it's $3 million in paint, $8 million, depending on where you're at, divide that by about 15%. And it's like 50 million in our area. I took the top 3 Sherwin-Williams and the 2 top Benjamin Moore retailers around here, which are known as JC Licht. And I had some rough numbers, and I divided it by 15%. And there's like $60 million worth of painting jobs around here. That doesn't include commercial. Right. That's mainly residential. And it's all within a 30-minute drive. And I thought, we need more painting companies to professionalize, because I would rather compete against the company charging $70 per man hour than the guy who's charging $25 a man hour doing side jobs on the weekend. So I just think it's better for the industry. But anyway.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about, as your team size grows and you guys continue to scale, I think where a lot of business owners start to fall short is they stretch themselves too thin, and they don't operationalize and create systems and processes within their company. What kind of SOPs, processes have you guys put into place that are working well for you today?
Okay. So the last 3 months has been, I shouldn't say the last 3 weeks have been pretty good. April, May, and June were incredibly painful because my sales manager and myself have been building our sales process with Paint Scout, with how we're talking to customers, how we're building it out so that we can hire like I said, I've got this interview with a new sales guy tomorrow. So that when we bring him in over the winter, if he's got no experience, he can fall in our system, get his feet wet through the winter, and hit the ground running in the summertime. Yeah. So sales system is largely Paint Scout for estimating. A little bit of art is going to have to be involved in that. You got to marry up the art and the science, and that just comes with experience.
Totally.
But then how do we present? What are the options? We try to always give a customer an idea of the price on site. at least a ballpark. And then we always try to have a proposal to them within 24 hours max. The faster you can get them a proposal, the better off it is. So we're building that process. SOPs, the friction point for us right now, to be honest with you, is marrying up sales with production and scheduling. And so my scheduling coordinator, who's our office manager, my project manager, and my sales guy and myself, we have 2 meetings a week to try and coordinate that and build out. So we're kind of in the process of doing that. Bowling Consulting is going to help us build some of these SOPs through our IT infrastructure that we're getting ready to build out. But systems and processes are really what's going to take you to the future. So we're kind of building things now to be a $5 million company 2 to 3 years from now.
Yes.
So that's really what we're trying to do.
And for anybody listening in who thinks that once you get through a multi-7-figure painting business, that they have it all figured out, this is proof that that is not the case. And I don't care what size company you're talking to, how long you've been in business for, nobody truly has it all figured out. There's always still going to be gaps in the processes, things they wish they could do better. And that's the journey of an entrepreneur is it never ends. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yep. And I've tried not to pick up a paintbrush at all. And I've largely done a great job, but I found myself the last 2 weeks, I'm the one out there, putting a color sample on the wall, as the owner, ultimately the onus falls on you. And my team is working and they're out getting stuff done, and we needed someone to do it. So jumped in the truck, grabbed the samples and went out there to do it. So not only do you have to build the process and get the people in place, you got to look at it as a team mindset. And sometimes you got to, I'm a trash hauler too. Hey, the guys forgot 4 bags of trash at the last job site. Roger that. I'm 15 minutes away. I'll go grab it. And so you just got to do what you got to do. And when you build that team mindset, that's really what the best course of action is. So,
yeah. So you've touched on it briefly, but let's talk through the sales process. So what does all that look like for you? What's been working well? What are you guys still working on today?
So leads come through largely through our office, whether they come through we use You Can Book Me. That's another software tool that we use. We had you guys implement that into our website, which was huge. Now we're really not answering many phone calls, scheduling people. We combine that with our Outlook calendars. We use Microsoft Outlook. And so leads come in through You Can Book Me, our website, or sometimes they come through the office. Our office manager assigns them to our 2 sales guy. One of them is me and my other is my lead sales guy. I'm largely not doing a lot of sales anymore. So she assigns it to them. He goes out and does the on-site estimate. We have not been confirming appointments, and that's bit us in the butt a little bit. So we're going to change that process. 24 hours prior, we're going to try and build this automated, where our automated system confirms the appointment. Just in the busy season, we've kind of gotten away from that. We do an on-site appointment. We walk through the scope of work. We write it up in Paint Scout. We either present it on site or we go back to the office. Sales guy writes it up and gets it over to them same day. And then the follow-up process right now is automated through Paint Scout, but we have the ability to turn that off and do a personal follow-up if we need to. But the follow-up is within 48 hours, and then that's done via email. And then we do a phone call or a text message follow-up after that. So that's kind of our sales process, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And you know offhand what your average set rate and close rate looks like today?
Well, set rate is part of a friction point for us. When we changed from drip jobs over to Monday, it did not transition well. And so I've got to get better at that on our set rate. I would say Facebook ads are our lowest set rate. That's I think when we were on drip jobs, I can't remember exactly, maybe 30% we were set rate for Facebook ads. But the other ones, it's hard to track right now. So we're trying to get a system in place that can track all that stuff. Our close ratio or our win rate, since we started with Paint Scout April 1st, we're at like 52%, which is high. That's really high. Yeah. And I don't know why that's so high. Typically, like the last couple of years when we were tracking it through drip jobs, I was around 40 to 44%. So it could just be we're in the busy season and we're just closing like crazy. Once we get into the slower season, maybe that goes down. But 51% since April 1st, average for a year around 44%.
Yeah, got it. And So let's talk through marketing. I know we kind of already touched on some of this, but as you mentioned, every channel has a different typical set rate and close rate.
Yep.
What's been working well for you guys? Because, even if, let's say, a set rate's low in one area, if the volume's there, then obviously the math makes sense on the other side. What's been some of the bigger wins, some things that haven't worked? What does all that look like for you in your market?
Well, I would tell you Facebook marketing, even if it has the lowest set rate and the lowest close ratio, there's so much. We get so many Facebook leads. It is worth it. It's worth it. The dollar cost we spend for Facebook leads versus what we get out of it has been huge.
Yeah.
So that has been a big. We won that retirement community because of a Facebook ad.
Right.
And so that's been really good. People Google everything. Google is a huge asset. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Austin, but it's hard to track exactly. Because someone could see us on Facebook, not click the ad, then Google us, and then find us through that channel, and it's all working together, right? So for online marketing, for SEO, having your Facebook ads and your Google profile all working together with a similar look, with a similar mindset, with similar information is huge, right?
Yep.
I will tell you the single biggest thing that I think has helped us is 5-star reviews.
Definitely.
I'm just going to tell you, we started our 5-star review campaign in December of 2022. We have about 175 right now. I haven't seen the latest ones. That coincided with our hockey stick growth. It's no accident. People take them seriously. Yep. Google does a great job of vetting them. I try to respond to every single one. It's actually one thing we're looking to do to grow. We just had a couple areas that are about 30 minutes south of us that are really growing, where we finished a couple projects. We got 5-star reviews, which is huge because it builds our profile in those areas on Google.
Yep.
So those are big when it comes to marketing SEO. I will also make a plug for print marketing. I got a buddy that owns a print business, and we started a mailing campaign this year. It's about 80 cents per mailer. So we're going to spend about $4,500 this summer targeting 3 different big communities. And we've already gotten our investment back and then some.
So good.
And so I'm not expecting the print to have an immediate response, but I am using it as an opportunity for it to be a touch point because we're on someone's counter, and we're going to continue doing it. And so people will see us multiple years in a row. Even though they may not be ready for a paint job this year, they're going to get one from us next year as well.
Brand awareness, man. You've nailed it. And I think that's where a lot of guys look at one channel and they're like, the volume's too low, the cost is too high, or the return isn't there. But if you look at the whole picture, right? If you cut out one channel that may be underperforming, it could actually be the tailwind on another channel that's performing well, right? And that's that omnipresence approach. And when you're talking about print marketing, let's dive into that for a moment. So if I did the math correctly, looks like you guys are going to be sending out about 5,000 mailers. Is that about right?
Yep. Okay. So in our area, there's neighborhoods that pop up outside of the downtown areas. And these neighborhoods are largely between 400 to 500 homes a piece, ranging in home value between 400 up to about $1 million. So you got upper level incomes. And so we target each one of those neighborhoods. There's 3 neighborhoods we did. We target them 3 times during the summer. We hit them, I think, in April. We hit them again about 3 weeks ago, and we're going to hit them again in late August.
Yeah.
We're also going to hit them through the winter. We've already been focusing on exteriors, but we're going to start targeting them on kitchen cabinet refinishing, which is it's a big growth opportunity for us.
Totally. We love kitchen cabinets. They sell so easy. They look great on paper.
That's my next video I'm going to do.
Awesome.
So I got to do one of those as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So let's talk through your strategy over there. Are you guys sending different types of creative on each of those postcards, or are they all the same?
The first 2 were the same. I think they had, I don't have one with me, but they were kind of like a before and after, which they don't always show up the best before and after on print, but at least it gives the customer a snapshot of what it is. And they all come with a QR code. So the QR code is huge. Yeah. And then our website's also on there, so they can take us to You Can Book Me. And our website also has all of our 5-star reviews. So the print is to try and drive them to the computer to verify what they think they're seeing on the print.
Love it. So good. All right. So a few other questions for you here. You mentioned seasonality a bit. So you guys are up in an area where it gets pretty cold in the wintertime.
Yep.
We have guys that struggle with seasonality and the market conditions around vacations and end of quarters. This year we have an election year, which is going to take up a lot of ad spend online. How do you guys mitigate and plan for seasonality?
It's a good question. I'm not sure that we've always gone into the season with a good plan. This year is going to be different because we've got more mouths to feed. I've got leadership on board. Largely, it used to be myself and my business partner running everything. And so we kind of, would just kind of fly by the seat of our pants, but we can't do that anymore. So the strategic marketing is going to be refocusing probably in about a month on interior painting, ad spend, interior kitchen cabinet refinishing. What we'll also do is, and we don't have a good plan in place. I've actually tasked my sales guy with coming up with a good plan. Retargeting past customers. Yeah. So some of the podcasts I've heard have talked about how great that has been as for number one, a close ratio, but also for new business, is to retarget customers from the past. So whether we end up doing like a MailChimp, an email campaign, or a flyer campaign, that's yet to be determined, but we're going to go into this season with a game plan. And that's kind of what we're going to look at doing.
I've interviewed a few people, the same exact thing. Your past customers are where a lot of guys just leave them on the table.
Yep.
But that is they've already paid you. They know you, they like you, they trust you. And more than likely, if they don't have a project today, they've heard of a neighbor or a friend that might, and just getting up in front of them again, maybe with a little offer, it goes a long way, and it's super low hanging fruit.
Yeah. So we find a lot, and this is something that, when it comes to content marketing, I really want to work on, is a lot of people don't understand the paint industry. So I think there's a lot of people that make the assumption A&A painting, we're literally sitting in our office, and as soon as someone calls on the phone and needs a painting job, we just dispatch everybody. Okay, painting job, ready to go. And you just dispatch everyone. Very few people understand, we're booked out. I mean, right. We're not booked out 6 months, but for the next 3 weeks, it'd be really hard for me to go do a big interior painting project. Yet realtors call us all the time. Hey, I got a closing next Friday. Can you get in and start painting the following Monday? Well, that's hard to do, right?
Sure.
So a campaign going into the winter could be, are you planning to sell your home in the spring? Get on our schedule now, right? So you can start that process of people understanding it's not just a painting dispatch company. Think about your painting project, get a quote now so that you're ready for the wintertime, so that you can be ready for, you know what I mean? So those kind of things I think are super helpful to educate the customer on what the painting industry looks like.
Totally. Could not agree more. All right. I want to dive into an aspect of business that I really invest a lot of time into, and that is the mindset that goes into scaling and operating a company, knowing that it's a roller coaster ride. You've all seen the up and down roller coaster. Everything's going great. Shit, everything's on fire. Oh my God, I'm winning at life. How do you have an even keel throughout running your business as a leader, managing other people, feeding other families? How do you manage that day to day?
Well, you know what? I mean, some of this is part of my faith background. Just as being a man of faith, I really spent a lot of time in spiritual disciplines. I know not everybody listening to this podcast is of the Christian faith, and fair enough. But for me, I largely lean on just the idea of, obedience equals blessing. And so I try to be very obedient in that aspect of my life. So with that being said, that doesn't mean sit around and do nothing. I tend to try and create very strategic relationships in my life. It's part of how I'm able to get to where I'm at today. And Eric would say the same thing. I don't really need to know about plumbing. I just hire the plumber to do the work because the plumber knows how to do it. Same thing with my sales guy. I'm overseeing it, but I really want him to build the sales process. So I'm trusting him and I'm verifying. And so that's part of the process. Understanding that I don't have to get up in the morning and create a Facebook ad so that I can get it out so that we can have work over the next 2 weeks. I create a relationship with a marketing company that does that for me. I don't have to know everything about paint. we're painting a 1924 a house built in 1924 that's got like an old Spanish stucco on it. I don't have to know all about that. I can bring my Sherwin-Williams rep out, and he can come out and meet me and talk me through the best process and the best product to use and to go through. So having these relationships in place takes a lot of the pressure off of having to know everything. And so I haven't always been that way. But as I grow in this business, that's really what keeps everything kind of on an even keel for the most part. So as an entrepreneur, you're going to wake up at 1 a.m. and not be able to go back to sleep. I mean, it just happens. But I try to minimize that as much as possible by having the right people and the right systems in place.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of guys, I mean, it's why most businesses fail, right? It's not due to the fact that this is a journey. It's a hard journey, and it tests you both mentally and spiritually and financially.
Yeah.
It tests your relationships. I mean, it's a path that you put yourself on that a lot of people just aren't up for that game, right?
Yeah. And I should mention this. You mentioned financially. We keep a lot of money in the account as a business owner because you never know when the times are going to come. And so you ask, how do I sleep well at night with a lot of mouths to feed and a lot of people relying on this company? Eric and I, the one thing that really attracted to me as a business owner when I met with him was Eric lives below his means. And he really wants to invest in the company, which means investing in the people, investing in, growing this company. And so that has created margin for us. So if we have a customer that takes, 2 months to pay because they travel a lot and they conveniently forget, it's really not that big of a deal. We worked for a retirement community that took a long time to pay. We floated a lot of money for a lot of time. All of our subs got paid and we waited on the paycheck because we live below our means. And so if you are looking to scale your company, do so in a way financially that's smart, that's strategic, and that can have margin for you on a daily basis. Because that's really key.
Couldn't agree more. Knowing your numbers is what allowed us to scale.
Yep.
And it's, you need to know your margins. I like to say down to the penny.
Yep.
Some guys have different risk tolerances where an average is fine. But looking at your numbers, your forecast, what your actuals are compared to that forecast, evaluating that every month, every quarter, it's so damn important.
Yeah. So, this may be for another time, but I do try to track gross margin on every project. I'm a little bit behind right now because we're so busy, but we try to target 50% gross margin. So if we sell a $10,000 job, we want $5,000 coming into the company after we pay out labor and materials. 40 to 49% is kind of yellow. Like that's okay. We can manage that. That's it's not a big win, but it's a win. Below 40%, you're starting to get into that. Okay, what happened on this one? Right. So that's something for us as a company that we shoot for. And I think that helps the industry to know like what other companies are looking for in numbers like that. So I thought I would just put that out there for other people to put in their back pocket.
Totally. And it's really interesting. We have some guys that are nailing 50% and then other guys that are down in the mid 30s and they're comfortable that way. But I mean, you're taking a very small slice of what your sales process probably could have outsold, right?
Right. And, some of that could come down to, a little bit, how they're paying their W-2 employees to what they're paying their 10. I know like it varies depending on where you're at in the country. I don't know if 50% is good enough. Maybe we should be at 55 and maybe we should get more jobs and be at 45 and grow our top line. We're working through that right now. So, but every company may be a little bit different, but that's just the way we're trying to do it.
Love it. All right. So if you had to go back in time and do this all over again, you've been a handyman, mowing lawns, partnering up with another company.
Yep.
What would you do different along that journey?
Yeah. So I think about this in regards to, let's just say I was going to move to Nashville, Tennessee and start this business again in Nashville, Tennessee. I would visit every Sherwin-Williams within a 30-minute period, a 30-minute drive of wherever I thought the location was going to be. And I would start just talking to people. I would sit in there and I would talk to every person that came in to buy paint. Hey, are you the owner? Hey, how are you doing things? And I would combine that with, I would build out a small system before I got started. I would want to know how I'm going to get my leads, How am I going to start leads coming in? What's my sales process going to be? And I would build this thing within 6 months. So it took me like 4 or 5 years to build it. And I now know that if I had those strategic relationships that I was building through the Sherwin-Williams or the Benjamin Moore retailers, and I could put some systems in place like marketing systems and spend a little money up front, I could build it within 6 months. And so that's probably what I would change.
Yeah, so good. And if you had like one last greatest insight, so if a business owner was coming to you and they were struggling today, what is one thing that you wish you could just scream from the rooftops that may help them succeed in business and in life?
I would tell them, talk to every person you know about what you're trying to do, and let your warm network connect you with the people that are going to help you build. And so I would not be here today if I wasn't someone that really valued deep relationships, because it's those deep relationships that has gotten me connected to the people that have got me to where I'm at. And so I would lean on those, and I would be humble. And I would tell them, you are never as good as you think you are. There's always someone that's better at what you're trying to get to. And so lean on those people. And that's really what has been key. It's one of the best reasons why I partnered with Eric, because I recognized he was better at some things than I was. It's why I lean on my sales guys, my project managers, my painters. All my painters are way better painters than I am. And they always will be. So that's what I would tell them to do.
So good. Yeah, I very much rely on what I call the law of averages. If I hear an answer for a question that I'm asking from one person, I'm going to go ask at least 5 to 10 other people that exact same question and just get various perspectives. And generally speaking, there's going to be a nugget of truth or a nugget in there that I relate to most that I feel like it's going to work for me. Matt, I appreciate you taking the time out of the day to be here, man. This has been awesome. I definitely want to have you back on at some point in the future to dive into some of those nuances that we talked about today.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thanks a lot, Austin. I appreciate it.
Thanks, brother. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us on that episode. I hope you guys enjoyed that chat as much as I did. Now, listen, if you guys are hungry for more conversations like this, go swing by our website. It's basecoatmarketing.com/podcast. And finally, we are very open to feedback. So if we haven't covered a topic or there's someone you want us to chat with, please let us know. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on the next conversation for painters.